This the Black Powder Podcast. Kick up your feet, lean on your armrest, and get your mind blessed on this conquest. Hold a grip like a 12 gauge, let this moment kick. Black people moving and having some gun ownership. I carry weight, not to keep the camera safe. It's thinking about you, my kids and my parents' faces. The big topics, they don't wanna involve us. Think we're novice, but now we're moving hard with revolvers. This the Black Powder Podcast, let's get it started.
Primers hit, the powder's lit. It's time to get on target. Welcome to another episode of the Black Powder Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Yasuke Fett. And just a general reminder of your marching orders and why we have created the Black Powder Podcast. The main mission is to change the social view of black society and firearms. How do we do that? Glad you asked. We talk, walk, read, write, and think about it to find a better solution for a brighter future for the proper protection of black people. Join us through education, practice, and safety as we take down the stigma of black people and guns, one discussion at a time. And just a general reminder, you cannot do a mag dump without a couple of rounds. So if you like what you're hearing and you happen to like this show, send out an email to blackpowderpodcast@gmail.com and let me know what your favorite episode is. Whether or not you agree, disagree, or have questions, please make sure to send them to blackpowderpodcast@gmail.com. And always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. The only way to continue to grow is to continue to share this knowledge with other people. And the only way to even get the message out is to let everyone know. So once again, if you like what you heard and would like to continue to hear, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, you can find us on multiple platforms, especially main ones. As of recently, we are now on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, and Audible. If you will go ahead and introduce yourself, sir. Who are we talking to today?
Yeah, I'm Yardley and I am a competitive shooter and former artist / administrator here in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Warner Robins, Georgia, and came to Atlanta in 1994. I came here to attend Art Institute of Atlanta and lived in Zone 5 for like 29 years. I've worked in the animation business here in Atlanta from its infancy in the late 90s, and pretty much as an artist and also on the operations side. And and here I am on this glorious podcast on a more than brisk weekday.
I appreciate you for making time for that again, man. And
No problem.
yeah, I didn't know you were an artist. That's pretty cool, man. And especially you said like animation.
Yeah, yep. Been working in and around the animation business for quite a while, freelance and, some full-time gigs as well. But yeah, animation in Atlanta goes back to like 1998, and there are a few animation studios that are located here in Atlanta. And, we already know that, the movie business and the animation business in this city is booming. Fortunately, the strikes are over. That kind of set a lot of people and a lot of businesses back, you know what I mean? Because that's money that you can't make, or you can't pitch, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. So it's kind of a blessing that wrapped up before November. And, it's going to take a while for a lot of industries to fully get their legs back up under them to keep going. But, once things hit like next year, it's really going to hit. So, and that's fortunate for a lot of businesses, including Black businesses. There's a lot of people, down the line that lost a lot of money. So I'm just kind of happy that we're out of that funk and ready to rock and roll in 2024.
Yeah, you're definitely right about the whole loss of money thing. There's been a couple of places I've tried to go back to, and only to find out that they went under, like they're no longer around anymore because of COVID and the loss of money. And the only two schools art schools I can think of in Atlanta. I mean, granted, I wasn't around the time I was in school, I wasn't looking too hard, but the only two I could think of right off the top of my head are SCAD and Art Institute of Atlanta, unless there's more now.
Well, SCAD. I think of SCAD kind of as the primary because you have a lot of studios that try to recruit, or they bring in, um, newer talent, or they kind of vet it from SCAD. AIA, it actually recently went defunct. I mean, they closed all the schools like earlier this year, just like out of the blue. So a lot of those
Wow.
students are, they're, up, what creek, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So I kind of feel bad about that. I went to the Art Institute in Atlanta for like 1 year. It became too expensive and I ended up, dropping out. But the funny thing about that is once I dropped out and I had gotten another, a part-time job, because obviously you still got to live, have a roof over your head.
Hmm.
My artistic ability was discovered at the place where I, the job that I had, and I ended up getting like work with Turner Studios and Turner Effects. It's called Turner Effects back in those days. And when you go from like retail type jobs to getting, you know, especially at a young age, like checks that were bigger than you had ever seen. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
like why do I need to go back to school? I always encourage people, hey, if you go to school, complete what you started. But in my particular case, it just worked out. It was just like, no, I'm not going to go to school when I'm where I wanted to be from going to school,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the cool thing about art is, either you can do it or you can't. If you can do it, you don't need a degree. Like really, people don't. If you know the programs or you can do this or that, you'll get a little test, and if you can do it, you'll get a job. So, but once again, I don't want to discourage anybody from going to school. I'm just saying, you know, you don't have to let them touch your pockets and end up maybe not getting anything out of it. If you can get those programs and do your thing, you should just do it, and just give it a shot, because people hire on your talent and not your degree in animation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I will kind of echo the same sentiment. It's like if you can go to school, go to school. But if there's another way for you to get this, like if it's something that doesn't require like the same amount of time as like a business management degree or something, then by all means study it on your own and then just, you know, network and see if you can get those skills utilized. Unless it's like one of those more intense skills where,
Yeah,
you can do animation on the side, but there might be something in a school that you might not know about, or there might be skills that a certain teacher might have, or just different
yeah.
things.
You just have to keep up with the times. You know what I mean? When I started, it was traditional, 2D animation, flipping the pages, running pencil tests, and then obviously everything evolved into digital. I'm more of a like I'm always a fan of hand drawn, but you have to adapt. So everything is moved to Cintiqs and digital, and Toon Boom animation programs and things like that. So regardless of your education level, if you're able to know and kind of evolve the way the industry is going, you got a great shot.
Yeah, that thing makes sense. I mean, that's all any industry needs to evolve is, people that have an idea to make it happen. Because for example, look at I think there's this deal going on where HBO, Paramount, and a bunch of other stations are considering a merger. Um, like big big stations. Matter of fact, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, BET was on there. And to be honest with you, I think that's happening because uh aside from DC Comics and Warner Brothers, which is another partner of the merger, but aside from that, I mean, most of those businesses haven't really been keeping up with the times. In my opinion, they've turned into like, or they're in a position where Blockbuster Video was whenever streaming came out, and DVDs and Blu-rays. You keep thinking that nothing's going to change and you should still be able to thrive, but if you're stuck in an old mindset, it's only a matter of time. And here we are now. But yeah, man. So it's funny because I don't know why I think of competition shooting as kind of like an art form, since we're on the topic of art.
Yeah.
Um, and on the subject, can you tell us about your background in competition shooting and how you got started?
Yeah, I'm kind of a late bloomer, so to speak, in competition shooting. I just got into it in April of 2021, and it was during COVID. And, it was mainly because, a couple of actually our Bass Reeves chapter of NAGA, um, they would always approach me at the events, and they keep telling me, hey, come out and, shoot IDPA with me and shoot USPSA matches with me. And they would kind of get on me, like at every NAGA event, that I would go to. And, I ended up, relenting, in part just because, I wanted to kind of get away from the monotony of, standing in a lane. And I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of run around and basically test my carry gear, under the stress of a clock. And one of the members, they just told me about like a weekly IDPA matches that they have at the Started Range and Guns in Midtown. So, once he told me, and that happened to be very close to where I lived. So, I made the decision to do it. And in my free time, before my first match, I would kind of go on YouTube and I looked up videos to kind of get an idea of what I would expect my first time in a match. And I ran across videos from Walter Sorrells. It was called Walter Sorrells Beginner's Guide to Shooting IDPA. And for those who aren't familiar, IDPA is the International Defensive Pistol Association. And it's essentially a competition that, in its essence, is kind of a scenario based competition shooting. And I started going to the weekly matches at Stoddard's, and that's now my local club. And at my first match, I happened to be in the same club that Walter shot at. He's a master class shooter, and that was kind of cool. And I've been pretty much going there weekly since 2021. And the interesting thing about competitive shooting, when I got into it, I was like, hey, I want to do something a little bit more dynamic. And if you would have told me never in a million years would I have thought that after a year that I kept doing it, and then I ended up becoming an expert level shooter. My first year, I ended up becoming a safety officer my first year, and you know, and it was just, I just never thought that I would be into it like that. But once I got into it and started meeting the community and caught the bug, I just kept doing it. And it's probably one of the better decisions that I have ever made because I'm more confident. You know what I mean? With my gun handling, I'm definitely a lot more alert to safety. Because there are obviously rules within IDPA and USPSA. Um, breaking the 180 will get you DQ'd, and having a negligent discharge will get you DQ'd. So you're kind of hyper focused on safety, which is something that kind of translates when you shoot a bunch of matches and it's safety, safety, safety each stage. Whenever you're out in the regular world, you have to handle your firearm or you're just, putting in your appendix holster or whatever. You're just really hyper focused on safety. So I think that's one of the major aspects that I really appreciate. It just makes me, you know, just more, if I pick up a toy gun, like my hand's gonna be off the trigger. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
it's just kind of one of those things. But that's pretty much how I got into it. And I've been shooting it for a couple of years now. And I've shot 2 state matches. And that was something else that I never thought, oh man, getting into a little over a year. And now I'm, shooting state matches and traveling to shoot. It's just hella fun, brother. I'm always trying to get you to come out, so we're gonna break it down at some point.
I think I mean, you pretty much gave me the vacuum cleaner sales pitch, and suddenly I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, maybe I do need one of these, especially since you said that it does make you feel more confident and you know more aware regarding safety and uh
Yes.
your gun handling, especially like that. That's one of the biggest things I'm still trying to overcome. I mean, I've gotten a little bit better, but there's always in the back of my mind, it's like, don't do this, don't do this. And it's not like
Yeah.
a reassuring don't do this. It's more like a don't do this because if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And when this happens, it's not going to be good. So don't,
Yeah.
yeah, I hate it.
Well, and and also it's it's humbling because there's lots of people who, they get into competitive shooting, whether it be IDPA or USPSA, and they don't. Um, it humbles them because, let's just say that you're a trainer. Like there are people who, they get paid, they're instructors and things like that. And when you're an instructor, you have individuals that are coming to you for you to teach them. So you're kind of like the big guy on campus. And
Mhm.
then once you go to a match, and then you get smoked by a teenager, you know what I'm saying, with the race rig, you realize, oh man, I'm not as accurate as I thought I was. I'm not as fast as I thought I was. I don't move and shoot as good as I thought I did, until you're in a room full of people that are doing the same thing under the pressure of a clock. So it's humbling, and it definitely gets you better. I mean, even if we all talk about, dry firing.
Mhm.
Everybody talks about, hey, you should dry fire, you should dry fire. Dry firing is good, and there, it definitely has its purpose, but nothing can kind of replace live fire, because you're getting that recoil, you're getting the feedback from the time you're, you know, have your stage plan, where you're going to reload and things like that. So it just helps you overall as a responsible gun owner.
I was about to say, I think you muted yourself, or that was weird.
Oh, you didn't get the what was the last thing I said?
It was good. It's like last thing I remember was you saying basically that it makes you more of a responsible gun owner, and then that's when the mute kind of cut off. But
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah. Just essentially, just doing thing and being around other people doing the same thing that you're interested in. By default, you're gonna want to get better. You know what I mean? There's no better feeling than seeing your rise from like the bottom of of the score list, and you keep moving up, and you'll get steady for a while, and you keep going up. And the other thing about competitive shooting is, a lot of times you have a chance because you're battling yourself in the clock, you're battling other people's times as well. But somebody who's better than you, hey, they could have a bad match, and then you have a good match, and next thing you know, you know what I mean, you've kind
yeah,
of jumped them. So it truly is, you never know when you go to matches. But then again, at the same time, there are people who shoot at a better level than others. So, you kind of have to use that example I gave to kind of, somebody that's kind of in your class, you know what I mean? But, it's just one of those things where, you never know. Anything can happen. You shoot a couple of no shoots, next thing you know, you're fourth or fifth place. You know what I mean? Like you just don't know. But I definitely encourage everybody, including you. You just got to jump, brother.
yeah, I even put my
Yeah.
jump man shoes on then. But it's funny because you said that you might be getting beat by like somebody who's or actually you're talking about the guy who had the rig, and I think he's like a teenager or something. Um,
Yeah.
a friend of mine actually ended up dealing with that. Will from I Run and Gun. Well, actually, he changed his name to I think range therapist, but
Oh
nonetheless,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's
yeah,
good. I love his still matches. Like he's just
yeah,
he does
yeah.
his
I
thing.
actually
Fun to
I
watch.
interviewed him a long time ago, but I need to get him back. I would love to have a bunch of competition shooters just like have a group chat about
Yes.
certain things and their experiences. But every now and then, man, when he go to those shoots, there was always this one young kid there, and he
Mhm.
always put him in second place to the point where I think it got kind of personal. He said, I lost to that freaking kid again. You see that on his Facebook. He posts a
Oh
score and
my
he had the
gosh.
kid up top and like he was second. So
It's interesting though, because like sometimes, sometimes when you try too hard, you mess up. You might mess up or you might forget something. I have found that some of the best matches that I've shot were just matches where I didn't overthink anything. You know what I mean? And I
mhm.
just kind of, I mean, obviously there is a thought process because depending on what you're shooting, you might have to run a course of fire a certain way. But it's just one of those where, look, just go out there, get a firm, good purchase on your gun, get a nice firm grip, and, shoot at the speed of the distance of the targets that you've got. And, try not to get any penalties and, try to go zero down if you're in IDPA or try to get those double alphas in USPSA.
Mm.
Oh, and be fast and don't fall.
Yeah, that
And
falling
don't
doesn't
get
exactly seem.
DQ'd. It's a
Yeah,
lot going on.
falling doesn't seem like it'd be fun, especially since you're holding a loaded firearm and
Yeah, I've I've seen it all, you know what I mean? But I have seen, for the most part, people who are experienced that I've seen that fall. A lot of them do manage to keep the gun down range because if you fall, you don't get DQ'd. You only get DQ'd if you drop the gun or if you break the 180 when you fall. So more times than not, more experienced shooters can they tend to keep it um, you know pointed down range. But I've also seen masterclass shooters drop their gun when they fall, or you know what I mean. So I've seen it. So and it just reminds you, it can happen to anyone. Anyone can get a finger violation for having their finger, in the trigger well while they're moving. You can get a violation for that. It can happen to
oh
anybody.
wow.
You can have a negligent discharge moving from one position. Like I've seen it. Like it's it's one of those things I'll say that keep you on your toes, but even if you're the best, things can, things can happen. And that's kind of part of the game, brain farts and just you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Forgetting something like that. That's actually part of the game. Like it's just, and it's one of
Wow.
those deals where it's like at some point it's going to be your time. Like I don't think like things like a finger violation or a negligent discharge, that's, you know, I think that I would probably be more likely to maybe accidentally break the 180, like maybe traveling from side to side, like your weak hand side, you know, sometimes you really have to pay attention to where that gun's pointing, like during a reload, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but, things like, dropping the gun and things like that, though, those are things that are probably less likely, but like I said, but it can happen. You see these things. If you shoot enough, you will see, yeah, you know what I mean? You'll see like everything and some things that you didn't think would happen. You know what I mean? But
Kind of reminds me of one of my
uh,
old jobs. You wait long
exactly.
enough, you'll see some crazy stuff that you never thought you'd see happen.
I
So
mean, truly, you know what I mean? And, that's it's kind of one of those things where, the culture and depending on where you're at is important because safety is something that, um, that's probably, you want to say that really number one because, you've got, hot weapons. So safety is probably, is number one for me. And one of the things that I've been fortunate, shooting with a lot of people that, some people from our chapter and just other people that I've met from shooting different matches around Georgia is that it's in everyone's best interest. If you have a new shooter, if they've got questions, talk to them, answer their questions. Don't be, it was everybody's first time once, you know what I mean? So it's
mhm.
one of those things where if I'm not giving this individual the knowledge that they need to be safe and to have fun, you're endangering, you're endangering yourself and the other people that are out there. So a lot of the club matches that I go to, especially shooting, with, Team AACS, with Silas and those cats, is that everybody out there, even if you're not a certified safety officer, everybody's a safety officer because if you see something that's unsafe, say something. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the rule that we have, that everybody's a safety officer. And it's all of our responsibilities to make sure that you know, that we make it home not hurt from something that was supposed to be fun.
That makes sense, and yeah, that's actually one of the best things that I like about the Bass Reeves chapter is the fact that it doesn't matter if it's like the marksman proficiency test or the men's day out shoot, or even if it's an outdoor shoot. There's no prejudgment, there's no discrimination. It's just people out there who are really trying to increase their skill level and get better at what they're doing. Every now and then you might see something crazy like Solomon and Kevin, God, Solomon and Randy. Yeah,
Oh
man. I
yeah,
remember last time there was an event, they were kind of going back and forth, and it turned into a competition, but it was like a kind of a competition between both of them. Nobody else is affected by it, but you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I definitely agree. The chapter does have a high premium, on safety. I mean, our safety record has been unblemished since I've been in, and even before I got in, they were saying that the blemish record of like nobody getting seriously hurt, at an event, like it's never happened. So we're definitely going to do everything we can to make sure that that streak continues. And and you're right, because like a lot of places that you go, obviously everybody has different skill levels, and like I say, any game that you can put someone onto, I mean, you really should. It's just that a lot of people don't realize that shooting is a degenerative skill. And if
Hmm.
you don't do it, you know what I mean? Like, I know, how many people do you know? It's like, yeah, I've got a gun. And you're like, hey, how often do you shoot it? I don't really, I go to the range like, once every few months, or, I've got a gun and, they haven't shot it since they got out the army, 8 years ago or something. And it's like, bruh, like, you gotta, you have to pick that thing up and, and use it. And that's another thing that is a very good thing is the testing your equipment aspect of it, because anyone who we'll just use Bass Reeves as a chapter. Like if you're in a gun club or anything like that, um, if you're not running your equipment, do you really know what's good or what's bad of it? Like everybody's got a drawer full of like holsters and mag carriers that they don't use because they just don't work with what they need to, with what they need to do now.
Hmm.
And getting out there and like shooting matches or just going to skill challenges and things like that and shooting in inclement weather. I've seen that sometimes even in like in general meetings in our chapter where um, there might be a member that's just saying, I would have came to the event, but it was cold. And it's like when people are trying to give you training, bad things don't wait to happen in great weather. Things are going to happen, could possibly happen to you in the rain or in the cold or, in searing heat. And the cool thing about competition is you're going to have matches where you have to shoot in inclement weather, and that's the best way to test your equipment. So, um, the firearms that I have, and I'm a Walther guy. Like these things have been in mud, they've been in rain, been in cold. They eat everything. I shoot steel case out of them sometimes, aluminum. Like
Wow.
I understand the gun. You know what I mean? Like I understand the gun. I know what it can do, and I kind of know what my skill set is, the different distances that I can shoot and shooting at moving targets, those types of things help you. It's just I don't think that there is a negative. Even if you're a tactical guy, competition shooting, can help you. If you're a competition shooter and you want to do more tactical stuff, all of those skills, help you, like no matter what you're doing. So that's why it's like it's kind of I just think that it's a good idea, at least for me, to try different mediums in the shooting, you know, in the shooting sports or tactical this and that and the other. It's cool to kind of do it all because you kind of learn to understand what you can do with a pistol or with a rifle or with a shotgun. It's like, and the more skills that you have, hey, shit might hit the fan and you might have to have a weapon that you don't normally use, and you don't want to be ignorant. You know what I mean? You might need to use parts from a weapon that you find. So it's there's just so many different avenues that being in the 2A community that's beneficial to people. Right?
This the Black Powder Podcast, let's get explicit. We got the wisdom hitting targets with a marksman precision. We're having fun in the booth, we're running gun for the truth. Every future black gun owner, we're spreading the news. We do illegal, we're moving regal and blessing the people. Some hopes for the culture, we keep it locked like guns in our holster. Holding it down as we're loading the rounds. If they were nervous back then they're gonna be scared of us now. Black Powder Podcast, we'll be back in the wild.